I am the part-time assistant at the Science Learning Center. I'm here to announce a cool thing that we have with this lecture. It's something called supplemental instruction. So what supplemental instruction is it's group facilitated study sessions by a peer leader like Anastasia. I'll give her a chance to introduce herself. What this entails is that you guys will, it's an opportunity for you guys to study together on these course concepts. Anastasia, who is right here, has taken this class, has done very well, and she is here to help you guys in your success for this course as well. Um, for SI will meet before this lecture, starting next week. It will be at 4 o'clock. Or no, yeah, four 4 to 4:50 at the beginning of the lecture, or before the lecture. So again, this is peer facilitated group study sessions. Um, People who go to SI sessions average a letter grade higher than people who don't. So this is a great resource if you want to improve your grades. If you plan on going into nursing, which I know a lot of you guys are nursing majors, health science, this is a great resource not only to get to know your peers as well as getting to know the course concepts as well. When I was the SI leader a couple years ago, I was lucky enough where everyone in my cohort got an A in the class. So I'm telling you, it's a really great resource. Take advantage of it. It is absolutely free, no cost to you guys. Free to show up. Again, Anastasia will be here to help you guys out. She has taken this course before, done very well, and it's a great resource. If you have any questions, you can email class@fau.edu. On top of that, you can go to SI schedule FAU online, and you can see what other classes offer supplemental instruction in case you're taking another science course like a chemistry or like another biology course. If you have any questions, you can ask Stacy, who's going to be here, and you can ask her about meeting times and everything else like that. Again, let her introduce herself. I know.
Hi everyone, my name is Anastasia, but you can also call me Stacy. I am a junior at FAU studying health science on track to getting my degree in nursing. I took this class my freshman year and I really enjoyed it. I got an A, so if I can do it, you can do it too. As long as you show up, pay attention, you'll do great.
Perfect. And again, if you guys have any questions, you can ask her afterwards. Feel free to ask any questions away. And yeah, thank you, Dr. Porter.
All right, so I think,
Yeah.
do you want Ray to introduce
Yeah.
them?
Yeah,
All
let
right.
Ray also join the announcements session.
Okay, so I'm going to be your TA, Ray. My email and office hours are all on Canvas, but just to remind you if you haven't looked, 11 to 1 p.m. on Tuesdays is my office hours in the Science Learning Center. I think that's also where SI is, question mark, maybe, I don't know. But a very important thing that you all need to do is that once you get access to Pearson, you need to disable all of your pop-ups for every Pearson website. You can do this individually or on one of the Pearson pages, there's going to be like a little pop-up circle. Like in the top of your search bar, you need to disable all the pop-ups because you're not going to be able to get into the homeworks or the quizzes or anything on Pearson if you have your pop-ups enabled, which is automatic. The pop-ups are like blocking pop-ups is automatic, so you need to disable those. If you click a button to try and get into the homework or the quiz and it just loads you back to the original screen, that means your pop-ups are still disabled. So that's like the most important thing that we get emailed about a lot is the pop-ups. So make sure you disable them. And then, yeah, SI, I've been the TA for this course for all of last year, and the thing that is most beneficial to the students is SI, not office hours, but not even reviewing the stuff, but SI is the most important. So I would highly recommend going to that. So that's about it for my introduction, and we'll just let Dr. Waziri get started.
All right, thank you, Ray. So I'm assuming everybody can hear me all right, and I can't see you, so I'll keep on assuming. Oh, I can hear you though.
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see your presentation. I just turned our camera off because
yeah,
it will point
save.
to the whiteboard.
All right.
All right, okay, take it away.
All right, so I want to thank you, Dr. Porter and Ray, Anastasia, everybody else there. And you're probably wondering, what am I doing on Zoom? Well, it's a long story, but basically I am stuck in Brazil thanks to our current administration. But it's a long story. I will not get into that right now. So for a few days, I would say until September 8, I will be virtually giving the class, but the class for you all is in person. Okay, you do not have the choice of just jumping on Zoom to watch the lectures. Sorry. All right, so we go here with our first class, and I'm going to go over some very important things that you have to know about the class and on how to do well in the class, which again is in person. Again, I am Dr. Paula Waziri, and here is the information on the office hours temporarily on Zoom. My office hours are Monday and Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. And here is the information on Ray, and also the information here on the SI. How is the class graded? You are going to be graded on your homework and quizzes. So those two here, you are going to log into your Pearson platform, into MyLab in Mastering, and you're going to have to do the homeworks. I advise you to do the homeworks first because the quizzes are based on the homework. You have many chances to get your homework correct, and of course there is no time limit. So all your homeworks will count to 20% of your grade. After you finish your homework, you go and you take the quizzes. The quizzes are timed, but I give you 2 chances of getting those quizzes correct. So if you just put some effort, you get those 40% of grades for the class. Now, pay attention to the deadlines for the quizzes and the homeworks and keep up with those, okay? I have opened all of the quizzes and the homeworks for the entire semester. So if you want to do everything on your first week of class, you're welcome to do it. Okay, if you want to follow each homework and quiz deadline, you're welcome to do that too. Okay, just make sure you keep track of those in the Pearson platform, okay, and make sure that you know when you have to submit them. All right. Then you come here to tests. You're going to have 4 unit exams. You need to take 4 unit exams to pass the class, okay? Those 4 exams are going to count to 60% of your grade, and you do need 4 exams. All right, grades on 4 of them. Besides that, we are going to have extra credit for the in-person sessions, okay? So you have to be in the class to get the extra credit. We're going to use iClicker. Now, I recommend that you use the app on your phone because we are going to join some research from the company that makes this iClicker, and they recommend that we use the app on the phone. But if you have the remote, that white remote, general remote, you can use that as well. All right. So if you sum up all of this, you're going to see that it adds up to 110. Now, 100% is based on that. 10% is extra credit. Okay, you don't need the extra credit to pass the class. But if your grade is 80 something and you have 10 extra points at the end of the semester, then you will push the grade to 90 something and you end up with an A. So that extra credit helps a lot. Okay, besides you practice some questions as we are covering each topic. Okay, if you have questions so far, well, you can ask them because I can hear you, and you'll raise your hand and use the microphone that should be available close to you, so I don't stay totally on a monologue here. So I'm assuming there are no questions so far. So let's go over how this class is structured and where you're going to find the materials and etc. Okay. So here, this is just a screenshot of the canvas. You're going to find under modules everything that you basically need for the class. So first thing in the modules, you're going to find my office hours, also Ray's office hours and information on the SI. Now, Ray has added here frequently asked questions. Um, well, I would encourage you to really go over those questions, before you start bombarding us with emails, all right, just in case you have some questions that were not answered. Okay. Here is information on how to register for the Pearson platform, and I see several of you have already done so. And then you start with weekly modules. So usually I have the pre-class reading and also learning objectives file. And then we are going to have, as you can see, this was before I updated the file for this semester. So you have here the PDF version of the PowerPoint that is always going to be there. Now I just got a notice here that my connection is unstable, so I'm going to turn off my camera just to not use a lot of um, internet power here. Okay, and now I don't know how to turn off the camera, so let's just go with the camera. Okay, so you notice here you are going to have your PDF, and then right after the PDF, right after the class, you're going to have another file that is going to be available, which is going to be the class video, right? So as soon as we're done with the class presentation, I will edit the video and I will upload it. Here is a screenshot of what you're going to find under your MyLab and Mastering platform in Pearson. So how are you going to check for your assignments? You're going to go under...
Dr. Ziri?
Yeah?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a lot here. If you don't mind maybe trying to turn your video off again for us.
Okay, let me see how I can do that.
If you're on Zoom, it's on the bottom, on the left-hand side of the Zoom screen.
The thing is that the PowerPoint took over my screens. Okay, on Zoom here is not there.
On the bottom toolbar, do you see the Zoom icon?
No, 1 second, let me pause. All right, so can you hear me better, I hope? Hello?
Yes, we can. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, so coming back here to your MyLab and Mastering, you are going to look under Assignments, and you're going to see what are the assignments and also the date that the assignments are due. So this is just a screenshot from the last class, but you're going to see all of the assignments are open already. Some other features that are very useful in the Pearson platform is that you can have here your textbook. So once you open your lecture textbook, the e-text, you're also going to find other sources for studying materials. Okay, so in this tab here, you open your Pearson, and in this other tab here, you access study materials, and they have very good videos and practice questions that can help you to grasp the subject at a deeper level. Now, I don't think the study material is included with your package, and I also am not sure about the costs, but well, check those out and then and you let us know. Another very good resource in Pearson is the dynamic study module. Okay, is also here in this menu. Now, this is not part of your grade, but is very useful for you to grasp the material and practice several questions. Okay, so take the time, go through the dynamic study modules, and you see that is a very good studying resource. So I was planning to start with the iClicker today, but we don't have a base in the class, so we're actually going to start with the iClicker on Wednesday. I did add here the QR code for you to log in and register for the iClicker session, but I will put this again on Wednesday because we're really going to start with the questions at that time. So here we go for the first unit. All these topics are going to be included in your Unit 1 exam. So we start with Chapter 1, which is really the organization of the body. So we're going to start with the human body orientation and things that you have to know for anatomy and physiology. Before I start diving into chapter 1, I wanted to know if we do have any questions in regarding to grades or assignments or resources.
Doesn't look good. Oh, yep, we got one question. Why don't you ask it, and then I'll just repeat it. So one student is having trouble getting into Pearson with the course ID of Faria Waziri, 0 and some numbers or whatever. 01060.
Okay, did the student follow exactly the setup instructions?
I think, yeah, he followed the instructions, but it won't let him in with that course ID code. Has anybody successfully enrolled in the Pearson that could help us out here?
Yeah, I saw
You're
that
raising your
several
hand pretty.
people did.
Okay. Yeah, so that's important, yes. Click the link in our Canvas page to get to Pearson. Don't just look it up.
Yeah,
Good,
exactly.
good. Okay,
Go
another
through,
question here.
Yeah. Go through the tab in the Canvas menu that says Access Pearson. Don't go through My Lab and Mastering tab because that one a lot of times it fails.
Okay, so apparently people are still having problems getting into it through the Canvas page as well.
Okay, I will
We have
contact.
2 links, Dr. Reserve. We have My Lab and Mastering, then we have Access Pearson. Do you know which one they're supposed to click?
Go through the Access Pearson. Because the My Lab and Mastering tends to fail, especially after they change the platform in the beginning of the year. Okay.
Has anybody been successful trying it now? Okay, it doesn't look like anyone has been able to. Pearson gives us problems every semester, and we, as your instructors, have no idea what to do with it because we are not Pearson, but usually it's a little bit of a learning curve. So give us a second on that. Did you have something to say?
Okay, I will contact the rep and say that we are already having trouble. Surprise, surprise. And hopefully she'll be able to fix it at her end. I will contact her as soon as we're done with the lecture today. Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions not related to Pearson? Nope, looks like we're good to go, Dr. Waziri.
All right, well, I did forget to say something really, really important. So make sure everybody's awake. Does everybody look awake to you? I can't see anybody from here.
I'm getting a lot of eyes, nasty eyes. So yes, everybody's looking awake.
All right, so nasty eyes are better than sleepy eyes. All right, so the point is that you do need grades from 4 exams, and those are unit exams. But at the end of the term, you will also be able to take a cumulative exam. That is a 5th exam, okay? You don't have to take the cumulative exam if the grades from 4 exams are good, okay? Now, you are not going to know if the grades from the 4th exam is good or not because the 4th exam is given on the same day as your final exam, which is a cumulative exam. Okay? So how are we going to do this? Hopefully you're going to do very well on the first 3 unit exams. You're going to go into the fourth exam with a lot of confidence, and then you are going to determine if you want to take the fifth exam or not. Now, now if you want to take the cumulative final, how is that going to work? On the day of your fourth exam, which is the day of your final exam, you're going to come to class, you're going to take the fourth exam. Then when you're done with it, you're going to hand it in to us, and you're going to tell us if you want to take the cumulative final. Then if you do, we're going to hand you the cumulative final. You go back to your seat and you take the cumulative final. Then you hand it in and you are done. Now, if you take the fifth exam, as I mentioned, you only need grades from 4 exams. So if you take the fifth exam, you have the privilege of dropping your lowest grade. Okay? If you don't take your fifth exam, then that's your lowest grade. Okay, because the way I have to enter the grades on Canvas, they have to have a certain rule. So if you don't take the fifth exam, that is a 0, and that's your lowest grade. But as I said, that lowest grade gets dropped. If you did really, really bad, let's say on your second unit exam, and you did better on your cumulative final, then you are going to substitute that bad grade. Then your second grade is going to be dropped. Okay, now let's say that you missed one exam without a good excuse, or without a FAU accepted excuse. Okay, if you miss an exam for any reason, then you have to take the cumulative final because you need that fourth exam grade. Okay, so if you have a good reason, an acceptable accepted reason, then we will arrange for you to take the exam that you missed. Now, if you don't have a good reason, then you just plan on taking the cumulative final. All right. Is that clear to everyone? Ray, do you see nods?
Yeah, we've had a few thumbs up going on.
All right, thumbs up is good. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that very well. Thumbs up, nods?
Good to go.
All right, cool. All right. All right, so back here to chapter 1 on the orientation of the human body. So here we start talking about anatomy and physiology. Now, what is anatomy? Anatomy is going to study the structures of the body and also how they relate to the rest of the body parts. Okay, so anatomy has to do with structure. Now, when you start talking about physiology, that has to do more with functions and how that structure is useful. Okay. Also, physiology is mainly going to involve cellular functions, at a molecular and cellular level, right? So anatomy is the structure, and physiology is the functioning of that structure. So here is how the chapter is organized. So basically, we are going to start looking at what is it really that is comprising here the anatomy and physiology, and of course how they're related. Then we're going to look at organization of the human body, and then we're going to look at very basic requirements for maintenance of life. Okay. After that, we are going to look at homeostasis, right? So that is basically how the body keeps itself in relative balance. Then that is going to be in relation to the changing of the outside of the body, so the change of the environment. We're going to look here at homeostatic balance. All right. And then at the end, we are going to look at how to describe the different parts and positions of the body. And then we're going to look at how the organs are organized inside body cavities. So we're going to briefly take a look at some membranes and also the organization of those systems, organs and systems. All right. And here I had added a little video that you can go through the Pearson and watch those extra videos that they have in the chapter. Oh yes, another thing that I'm forgetting to mention is that I have arranged with Jove, the Journal of Visual Experimentation, to have a free access for this class for the entire term. So I have also added in the modules and our Canvas how you can access those videos. And surprisingly, I was trying to already add some videos in the modules, and my access was blocked. I don't know why. So I have to call these Jove people again and see what is happening, because they did promise that my class was going to have full access, and I assume that includes me. So as soon as I have access again, I will add those videos to the modules so you have some extra tools to study with. All right, so here we go on topics of anatomy. So you have basically three different types of anatomies. You have ones that the type that you can see, or macroscopic, is also called gross anatomy. Okay, not because it's disgusting, just because it is visual, it is visible, right? So this is what you can see without the need of a microscope. So this is macroscopic anatomy. So those are structures visible to the naked eye. And what we're going to see here, we're going to see certain segmentations of these anatomies. So you're going to have regional anatomy, and you're also going to see in relation to systems. So you're going to have anatomy of, for example, here, cardiovascular system or nervous system, skeleton system. So we're going to look at this general anatomy as a whole. All right, so this is everything you can see in the naked eye. And then you look at microscopic anatomy. So of course, that is what you see through a microscope. This has to do with cytology. That is the study of cells. All right, so we study the shape and the function and the particular structure of cells and how they differ from each other. So that to study that, you do need to have some good power magnification, right? Now, when you put cells together, you're going to get tissues, and the study of tissues, you call it histology. All right, so many cells together is histology. Individual cells are you put under the category of cytology. Besides those two types of anatomy, you also have developmental anatomy. So that has to do on how certain structures change throughout the fetal development and throughout the lifespan. We are not very much going to focus on developmental anatomy because we don't have that much time to cover everything. So this part here, if you're going to take A&P2, at the end of A&P2, we briefly touch on developmental and structural anatomy. But in this course, we're not going to look through that. And now we come to topics of physiology. Now, that is going to study how the structures work. So it's going to study dynamics and molecular functions. So when you look at physiology, you're really going to look at how the cells are working. So it's going to be at a deeper level and looking at mechanisms that allow the cells to function. For example, we're going to look at muscle contraction and also maintenance of polarity for cellular membranes. Just 1 second. So we are going to look at structures that are present in the plasma membrane and okay, this is not working very well here. And we're going to look at fibers inside of the cell, and like for example, when you look at a muscle cell, you're going to see how those fibers slide along each other to allow for muscle contraction. So basically, when you look at physiology, you're really going to look at the cellular function. So here we would have our first iClicker question, but we are going to save this for Wednesday, and then you can get your points on Wednesday. A bit more detail on how this iClicker works. Okay, class attendance is not absolutely mandatory, but if you do come to class, you get 1 point once you log into your iClicker account. Okay, so 1 point every time you just show up in class. Now let's say that you start here, we go through the first question. So you would open your iClicker app, or you're gonna use your remote, and you're going to answer the question. When you try to answer the question, you automatically get 1 point, even if you are wrong. Okay, so just by coming to class, you get 1 point. By trying to answer one question, you get another point. If you answer the question correctly, you get another point. So by answering the question correctly, you get 2 points. Okay, so you can start to accumulate here in your bank of extra credits with the system. And of course, you can only do that if you show up in class and if you are awake to answer those questions during the class, right? You cannot make up iClicker extra credit points. That is only for in person. Even if you have an excused absence from the class, which a lot of you are, or several of you would say, are part of sports, take part in sports, and you go, to compete in other places, and you have excused absences, but there is no way that I can allow you to make up these points because the way the system is set up. Okay. Now, don't panic, because I usually give you a lot of chances to accumulate those points. So if you miss some points here and there, you can still accumulate a lot of extra credit points that are just going to help you at the end of the term. Okay, is everyone okay with these extra credits? How it's set up? Do we have questions? Ray?
No, looks like we're good to go.
Okay. It's kind of strange not being there and not seeing you, but it kind of gives me the deja vu of COVID setup. Okay. Okay, so now we come to this topic of complementarity. Okay, what does that mean? Well, that means the structure of something has to be useful and have a certain function. So when you look at the anatomy of body parts, it should make sense that they should work in a certain way, right? So basically, what you're saying is that the structure and the function, they have to go together. They are inseparable, right? That means the function of a certain tissue or a certain organ is always going to reflect its function and vice versa. Okay. That idea that structure goes hand in hand with function, that is this principle of complementarity. And as I say, that always sounds like a good test question, right? Oh, that's another thing about my classes. I usually tell you what I'm going to ask in the exams. So if you take some notes and you keep awake for the whole class, you're going to see that all my test questions come from what I give in class. And if I'm present, I mean, if I'm there physically, or if I could keep my camera on, I usually would just like put my hands up and say clue, and then you can say that, I'm going to ask certain questions. All right, so here we go more on this idea of complementarity. So if you look here at the structure, for example, of your teeth, you're going to see that certain teeth are shaped with sharp corners, sharp ends, right? So here are your incisors. Now, those are used to cut certain things, I would say foods, right? So the function of those shaped teeth are basically to cut the food. Now, if you want to crush the food using your incisors, it's not a very good idea. So you use a different shape of teeth, and basically those would be your molars that have the function of grinding the food. So this is very obvious if you think about it. If you want to cut something, you're not going to use your molars. You might be able to cut something, but you're going to have to put a lot more effort into getting the food cut. So if you look at the shape and the structure, you can deduce what the function might be. And although this is a very obvious example, when you start looking at cellular examples that are not as obvious, you always keep that in the back of your mind. It's like, why is a cell a certain shape? Why is it? What is the function of that certain cell? Okay. So when we look at, for example, muscle cells or fibers, you're going to see that those fibers tend to be quite long. So here is just a representation, crude representation of a muscle fiber. And you're going to see that, for example, here, your fiber is going to have a lot of little fibers inside of that, okay? When you look at the function of those fibers, you're going to see that they will slide along each other, and of course that will cause contraction or shrinking of this huge muscle cell or also muscle fiber. So you'll be able to deduce the function based on looking at the structure of a certain cell. And another example is if you look at a neuron. So here is a very crude representation of a neuron. You'll see that you have areas in the neuron that are close to this body of the neuron. You have a nucleus also here at the body. So this area is meant to receive information from other cells. And you see that this neuron has a certain shape that has this very long protrusion that is the axon. And you will see that what is happening here is that this neuron is meant to receive information and process information at this side and then transfer the information somewhere else. So you can start deducing that the shape of that cell has the function of receiving and sending out information in a certain way. You also see that this neuron does not have those contractile fibers, right? So the function of this neuron doesn't really have to do with movement as when you compare to a muscle cell. So always keep in mind that the structure will reflect the function. So now here we start to look at the overall organization of the systems of the human body. So the first thing that you're going to look at is really what is making up the molecules that are going to make up your cells and your tissues and your organs, etc. So of course, to make up molecules, you start with individual atoms. Okay, so atoms get together, you get your molecules, molecules will get together, and you start to make small components of your cell. So here is an example of a mitochondrion. So this is an organelle that is going to be part of your cell. Now, when you put different organelles together, you start to get your cell. So you just see how this thing is building up on these levels of organization. Now, another important information that I want to mention is that you should have a background knowledge coming to this class. So all of this chemical property session that involves atomic properties and molecular properties, this is part of basic chemistry. So that should be already on your background. Now, I understand that there are no real prerequisites for taking this class, so I have prepared a PowerPoint that goes together with a video that reviews all this basic information on atomic structure and molecular structures and the very basic things that you need to know in order to understand what goes on inside of the cell. Okay, so I will upload that as part of lecture 2, but as you will see, lecture 2, the PowerPoint itself or the PDF file itself is huge, and I'm not going to start talking like Speedy Gonzalez to cover everything in one sitting. So we will cover the parts that are more relevant to anatomy and physiology, but you will have the self-study session that is the review of this basic chemical knowledge. Okay. So what is happening here at the levels of organization? So first levels that you have is really the chemical level. So this is going to put together here the atoms and molecules, all right? And you include here the organelles at the chemical level, although organelles are more sophisticated than just chemicals. Now, after that, you're going to get to your cellular level, right? So those are just your individual cells. When you put several cells of one type together, you're going to get to tissues. So cells of one type will make up a tissue. When you put several tissues together, now you start to get to organs. Okay, so when you look here, for example, at a blood vessel, you're going to see that the blood vessel is made up of different tissues. And my little dog has to be pestering me. Go. Just 1 second. Okay. All right, so we were here at the organ level. Different tissues put together make up here the organ. So if you look at a blood vessel and say, is that an organ? Well, yes. What is the definition of an organ? The definition is that you have to have 2 or more types of tissues that are working together. They're put together in this one thing. So if you look here at a blood vessel, you are going to have connective tissue, you're going to have smooth muscle tissue, and that falls into the definition of what makes it an organ. Okay? All right, so after the organ level, you start going to an organ system level. So now we are going to put together the organs that are working very closely to make some, to have a certain function in the body, right? So at the organ system level, you're going to see arteries, you're going to see veins, and you're also going to see other organs that are working in this process of moving the blood around in your body. So here also your heart is going to be included in this organ system, in this case the cardiovascular system. All right. Then when you put several organ systems together, you finally come to organismal level. So that is what is going to make your whole body to work and survive. So here, just to reiterate the different levels of complexity. When you look at individual cells, you're really going to see that those are the smallest living units that you're going to find. All right, so cells are really the units of life. They are alive. When you look at particles that are components of cells or smaller than a cell, those are not alive because they cannot reproduce on their own. And they cannot use energy on their own, so those are considered not units of life. An example here would be a virus. So here's my little picture of a bacteriophage. That's a virus. That is not alive. That can infect cells, but by itself, it's not alive. Okay. So cells are the simplest units of life. Then when you start getting to tissues, again, those are types of cells that work together. So I will need to mute myself and scream at some people. They are letting the dog bark. So just breathe for a little while and give me 2 seconds. Kátia, por favor, põe ela na frente que eu estou no meio de uma aula. Eu não posso ver ela latindo no fundo. Obrigada. Okay, is everybody still in the class? Right?
Everybody's still here.
Okay, good. Yeah. Sorry for these lapses here. Coordinate with some other people. I told them I'm teaching. Okay. All right. So where were you? Where was I? All right. Here we go. Different types of tissues. We are going to have 4 different types of tissues. And yes, we are going to look at every one of those, and we're going to have to distinguish one from another and sub-levels of tissues. So we are basically going to start with connective tissue, and then we're going to look at epithelial tissue. Then we're going to look at muscle tissue, and finally we're going to look at nervous tissue. So those are all the types of tissues that make up your body. All right, so if you look at any organ or organ system, you're going to find these different types of tissues. Okay, so tissues, this is the second level of organization, and then we're going to look at organs and functioning of those organs. So here is taken straight from your book, showing this organ system, and you're going to look at the different organ systems that are in the body. So here's another slide. There is a bit repetitive, but this is just for your practice. So you should see this slide, of course, doesn't have anything written on it. So you should be able to write the different levels of organization, and that should be very much self-explanatory. You should definitely be able to go through this exercise. So this would be the other clicker question that, of course, we're not doing that today. So answer the question in your mind and be ready for Wednesday, because those are going to be the first slides in the beginning of Wednesday's class. So you'll be able to start accumulating and banking those extra credit points. So here we're going to start talking about requirements for maintenance of life, and we are going to go through each one of these requirements individually. But now you should start thinking, does it make sense? All right, so if you go through each one of these requirements, you should be thinking, okay, let's see here. First requirement is maintaining boundaries. Now, would that make sense? It's like, well, let's think about it. If you have a whole body and you're not maintaining skin and blood vessels boundaries, for example, let's say that you get into a car crash and a part of your body get broken and you bleed to death. Well, that is not maintaining boundaries. So life would stop at that point if you're not able to fix up the broken boundaries quite quickly. All right. So movement, that means at several levels, at the cellular state as well as organismal state. You need things moving around in order to maintain homeostasis. Now, responsiveness. You have to be able to respond to your environment. The cells will have to know how to adjust in order to keep homeostasis, which we're going to come to definition very soon. All right. Now I'm not going to go through every one of these now because again, we're going to go through them individually. But keep in mind that every one of these requirements is necessary in order to maintain life. So here we start here with each of those necessities. Again, when you're talking about maintaining boundaries, you are talking about mainly separating the inside of something that can be a cell or a tissue from the outside environment. Right. So when you look at a cell here, for example, you'll see that the plasma membrane is separating the inside of the cell from the outside environment. So maintenance of that boundary is important for the life of the cell. If you burst that membrane, the contents are going to spill out of the cell and the cell is going to die. All right. Now, when you look here at skin, for example, as I mentioned, the skin is separating your organism from the outside environment. If you break the skin or burn the skin or have some kind of skin injuries, then things that are present in your environment can penetrate your body, or things that are present inside of your body can go out into the environment, and that would be breaking the boundaries. So that is a problem. All right. So second requirement here would be movement. Okay. When you look at movement, again, you can look at organismal type of movement, which is body parts that are moving, right? Or you can look at other types of movement, for example, circulation of blood. You are going to need the movement of blood throughout the body in order to take nutrients to the tissues and bring waste products out of the tissues in order for them to be eliminated. So constant movement, either on a micro or a macro scale, is very much needed to maintain the life. So here we get to responsiveness. So that is very important because the cells and the tissues, they want to adapt and respond depending on the environment. So those tissues are going to sense certain types of stimuli and they are going to respond accordingly. Okay, so you're talking from a cellular level to organismal levels. For example, when you have a certain level of blood sugar that is going through your circulation. Okay, so let's say you have high level of blood sugar. You're going to have certain cells here, for example, in your liver. They're going to sense the high level of blood sugar and they're going to respond by allowing this sugar to enter the cell, right? So responsiveness to the environment, which in this case was high blood sugar, is important for this cellular function. Now, let's say that instead of having a high blood sugar, let's say that you have now low blood sugar. So here, those liver cells are going to feel the low level of blood sugar, and they're going to respond in a certain way to give out some of the sugar that it has accumulated in order to bring the blood sugar level to homeostatic conditions. Okay, so those cells are going to sense when you need a certain level of sugar in your blood, or glucose back in your blood. So responsiveness is very much needed for maintenance of the life. Here we have other examples. For example, I put here withdrawal reflex, and we're going to see that when you get to the nervous system. Okay, and another example is also control of breathing rate. So when you look at the respiratory system, you're going to see that you need certain levels of oxygen present in the blood, and you need certain levels of carbon dioxide to be expelled from the blood as a waste product. And you are going to adjust your breathing rate based on metabolic demands of your body. Okay, if you need more oxygen, like say for example you are exercising or running, you notice that your breathing rate starts to increase, and that is going to deliver more oxygen to your tissues, and at the same time is going to allow more carbon dioxide to be excreted. Okay, now let's say that instead of running, if you are relaxing and getting ready to take a nap, for example, you don't need to be breathing very heavily, right? If you breathe very heavily when you're not exercising, you tend to hyperventilate, and that is not very good for your blood pH, right? So you need your systems will need to adjust based on each condition requirements. Okay. Right, so here we look at another necessity for life function, which is digestion, right? Again, both at the cellular level and at the organismal level, you're going to need to ingest nutrients, and you're going to need to absorb the nutrients, and those will have to be delivered to your organs and tissues. So digestion and absorption of nutrients is, of course, very much needed to preserve life. So now we get into metabolism. Now, what is metabolism? Basically, the metabolism is putting together all of the processes that are happening at the molecular level in your cells. So when you absorb certain nutrients from the blood, you're going to use those nutrients and break down those molecules to be used as fuel or as building blocks, right? So when you are building something that is based on absorption of those nutrients, you call that anabolism. So building up things is anabolism. When you're breaking down molecules and using it as fuel, for example, you call that catabolism. So building up and breaking down things, you put them both together, and that will give you a general metabolism of the cell. So of course, you are going to adjust the metabolism based on what is present in the environment and on the requirement of your cell and of your organism. Okay. And I believe the last one here is excretion. So when all metabolism happens, you are going to end up with waste products. Now, those waste products, of course, your body cannot use it. So if you keep it in the cell, or if you keep it in the organ, you're going to end up with a certain toxicity that can be detrimental to the life of that cell or of that organ. So removal of the waste products is very much important to keep you alive. So here we look at these other last functions. One of them is reproduction. Okay. So reproduction at this in this context, we are looking at two different levels. We are looking at the cellular level, and we're also looking at the organismal level. So when you look at a cellular level, you see that many cells divide. So that means they are reproducing, okay? And that is going to help with maintenance or repair of certain body functions. So repairing or maintenance or regular turnover, that has to do with cellular division. When you look at the organismal level, that of course is the capability of producing offspring, so the life of the species can go on. All right. And the last one we have here is growth. Now, growth is part of the cell cycle, so growth is definitely related to reproduction when you look, for example, at cell division, right? And growth in itself wouldn't really be a necessity of life, but if you're going to divide a cell and the cell doesn't grow, then that would eventually lead to the cell death if you follow that logic. So growth is also part of necessary life functions. Right, just ignore my little annoying dog here in the background. Right. Okay, so now we start to look at overall organ systems, and we're going to see that you do have 11 organ systems. Well, lately we actually have 12, but we don't really talk much about the 12th organ system. I would just briefly mention at the end of this description. So let's look here at the 11 organ systems that we have. So the first one, which is also the one that we're going to be looking in this class, is the integumentary system, and that means mainly your skin or variations of what is basically skin, which is going to be nails and hair. So skin is very important for covering up your entire body, so it's very important for protection, and is also important to maintaining your body temperature. So you're going to have temperature control and protection from the outside environment. So that is going to be part of your integumentary system. Next system that we have is the skeletal system. So that is your bones. You're going to see the two different skeletal components. You have axial and appendicular. And what is it important for? Well, basically, it's going to support your body and also allow you to move around. Because remember, if you don't have bones and you just have muscles, then the muscles are basically useless. You wouldn't be able to move around. Besides that, your bones are very, very important for the formation of blood, because your blood cells are made in the bone marrow, most particularly in the red bone marrow. We're going to take a look at how that happens. Another very important function of bones is storage of minerals, especially calcium. So here is your support system. So that is your skeleton. Next one we have is the muscular system, and of course very, very important for moving around. It also helps to support your body and is going to help with thermal regulation or heat generation. Okay? When you use your muscles, you increase your body temperature. That's why when you go out in the very cold weather, which is not the case right now in Florida, but it is the case right now here in São Paulo, Brazil. It is freezing cold. You step outside and you start shivering. So those muscle contractions, they will help. They do help to maintain the body temperature. Next one we have here is the nervous system. Now, functions of the nervous system is basically to respond to stimuli. That can be inside stimulus or outside stimulus. It's going to sense something and is going to send information on how to respond to certain stimuli. Okay, so very important for response to stimulus. And then you have your endocrine system. Oh, observation. Your nervous system responds very quickly. Now, your endocrine system is also important for response to environment and control of the rest of your systems. But your endocrine system tends to be slow. Okay, so your nervous system is quite fast, but your endocrine system is quite slow. But it's very, very important also for long-term control of all of the other systems. Then we look at the cardiovascular system, and that has to do with blood vessels and your heart. What is it important for? Well, it is going to move your blood around and is going to transport things. It's going to bring oxygen to the tissues, is going to get rid of waste products, is also going to bring nutrients to the tissues, right? And we can imagine this system has to always be working because if certain tissues are deprived of gases, for example, oxygen, certain tissues can die quite quickly. An example here would be your brain. You cannot go very long without oxygen or brain cells start to die, right? I'm sure everybody's aware of that. So good functioning of your cardiovascular system is is very much essential for maintenance of life. And then go to the defense system. So this is your lymphatic system. That has to do with defense against invaders. So if you have certain pathogens that are trying to harm or invade the body, your immune system will jump into action. But besides that, this system is very important to distinguish what is good microorganisms from microorganisms that cause harm. So your lymphatic system is extremely important at that level of distinction. Besides that, your lymphatic system is also important in recognizing transformed cells or cancer cells. So your lymphatic system is always looking around for certain cells that divided and are not looking normal. And there are certain cells in your lymphatic system that go after those transformed cells and destroy them or eat them up. Okay, so this part of immune defense is really important for overall maintenance of the body. Now, what is comprising here your lymphatic system? You have your lymphatic vessels, you have lymphatic nodes. The spleen is also important for lymphatic system. And look at this. You have red bone marrow. That's where all of the cells in your blood originate, including all of the cells of your immune system. They all start at the red bone marrow. And you also have the thymus. This is where certain cells of your immune system differentiate and learn how to distinguish between self and non-self. Right? So it's very, very fascinating studying the immune system functions. but that we're not really going to look that into this class, but just to give you an idea of what this system is used for. So here we look at the respiratory system. This is exchange of gases. Mainly you're going to have carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange in your lungs. And then you have all the pipes that are going to, bring in oxygen and take out carbon dioxide. So that's basically part of your gas exchange. And we have this other system here, of course, your digestive system. It's a very long tube. Okay, so we have the main tube and accessory organs, and that is very much responsible for ingestion of nutrients, breaking down of foods, of nutrients, chemical breakdown, physical breakdown, processing of those foods and nutrients, and then absorption of these nutrients for maintenance, for body maintenance. And here's another system, your urinary system, that is extremely important for water and salt balance, as well as for excretion of metabolite of waste of metabolic wastes. Okay, and also very important for blood pressure control. Okay, so urinary system is comprised here of your kidneys, ureter, and urinary bladder. Okay, so kidneys and bladder, and basically you're going to do a water balance, salt balance, and control of blood pressure. Then you come to reproductive systems. You're going to have here the male reproductive system. I'm sure you all know what the reproductive system is used for. And you're also going to have female reproductive system. Again, those systems we look at in A&P2. So here is just the overview of, um, of the 11 types of systems that we have in the body. So that's the male. So here we have the female reproductive system. And then, oh, we are missing the very last system that is not there, so I'm not going to test you on it. So one last system that is getting into the textbooks is really your microbiome. So those are the microorganisms that are present mainly in your gut, but also on your skin and mucosal tissues. So microbiome is extremely important for your development, including your um, immune system development and nervous system development. And more we are finding out more about the microbiome, but it didn't make it to this book yet. But I just wanted to be aware of that system as well. So here we're getting actually to the last slide for this first class, and we start talking about survival needs. All right, so you need certain things in order to survive. If you have too much or too little of any one of those things, you will not survive. So you have a little cartoon of this poor diver here that is starting to run out of oxygen because his friend here is just watching whatever he's watching and stepping on this oxygen supply. You can see that guy is not very happy. Okay, so for next class we are going to start talking about these survival needs, that those are going to include nutrients and oxygen, and of course water, as well as a semi-constant body temperature and proper atmospheric pressure. And this is the last of our slides. Do we have questions? And of course I can't see you, so speak up. Little Lola here has some questions.